Every single day there's this absolute tidal wave of new scientific research getting published. Seriously. For scientists who are trying to find the truth on just one specific topic, it's got to feel like searching for a single grain of gold in a whole mountain of sand. So how on earth do they actually do it?
Okay, let's really think about this for a second. It is a huge, huge challenge. Imagine you're a researcher. Before you can even start your big breakthrough, you first have to read thousands, literally thousands, of article titles and abstracts just to find the handful that are actually relevant to your work. What a monumental task.
So the gold standard for doing this right is something called a systematic review. It's this super rigorous scholarly method for hunting down every single relevant study, putting all the knowledge together, and drawing a really reliable conclusion. This is basically the bedrock of evidence-based science. But, and it's a big but, this gold standard has a major bottleneck.
And that bottleneck is the screening phase. This is the part where human researchers have to manually, one by one, read every single title and abstract to decide, is this paper in or is it out? It takes forever, it is so exhausting, and frankly, because people get tired, it's where mistakes are most likely to creep in.
And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, one of the research projects they looked at in this study had to screen 2,683 articles, and that's just for one project. This incredible workload is one of the biggest things slowing science down. So, could there be a better way?
Well, this is where AI strolls onto the scene. A team of researchers had a great idea. What if we could use a large language model, like ChatGPT, as a kind of research assistant to automate this painful screening process? Could it actually, speed up science itself? So they designed this really cool experiment to get some answers. They focused on 3 key questions. First, what's the best way to ask ChatGPT to do this? Second, how good is it compared to other specialized software already out there? And third, does it matter what kind of research it's looking at? Now here's where it gets really interesting. Getting a good answer from an AI isn't just about what it knows. It's all about how you ask the question. This whole field is called prompt engineering, and it was pretty much the heart of their entire experiment.
They came up with a prompt template that had 4 basic parts. First, you give it context. You tell the AI what its job is. Second, you can provide examples, a few papers you already know should be included or excluded. Third, you lay out the specific criteria, the actual rules for kicking a paper out. And finally, you give it clear instructions on exactly how it should answer you.
So using this template, they tried 2 main strategies. The first was zero-shot prompting. That's where they gave the AI the rules but absolutely no examples. The second was few-shot prompting, where they gave it the rules plus a few examples to learn from. Now you'd think that more examples would lead to better results, right?
Well, the results were not exactly what you might expect. This is where things got really interesting and kind of counterintuitive.
Okay, get this. The prompts with no examples actually did better. Yeah. It turns out that giving ChatGPT a few examples to learn from could sometimes just confuse it, or maybe even bias its results. Just giving it clear, explicit rules was way more effective.
And the performance was pretty impressive. The best performing prompt hit a 76% balanced accuracy. And that's a key metric because in this kind of research, you're always throwing out way more articles than you keep. This score takes that imbalance into account. All in all, a very strong result.
The winning prompt, the champion, was nicknamed Simple X. And its magic formula was, well, simple. 0 examples, but a crystal clear, explicit list of the rules for excluding a paper. No gray areas, just pure instructions. So the next big question, how did this Simple X prompt stack up against the traditional tools that were built just for this job? It actually won. You can see it right here in the bar chart. On one of the datasets, ChatGPT scored a 0.77 on a key performance metric, just edging out the specialized classifier, which got a 0.73. But, and this is important, there's a trade-off. Think of the AI like an overeager assistant. It's fantastic at making sure no important papers get tossed out by mistake. Scientists call this high recall. But the downside is that it also brings you a bunch of junk that isn't relevant, what's known as low precision. Basically, it casts a really wide net so it doesn't miss the good stuff. So, what does this all mean for the future of doing research? Well, it's not about replacing humans, not at all. It's about a totally new kind of partnership, a partnership between humans and AI. The study really gives us a clear playbook here. The big takeaways are, Give the AI clear, explicit rules, but don't try to confuse it with examples of what not to include. And, maybe most importantly, remember that it's an assistant, not the final boss. A human always needs to be in the loop to make the final call.
What we're really seeing is this fundamental shift in how science gets done. In the past, this screening work was all manual. Right now, in the present, we can use AI as a powerful first-pass filter. It gets rid of all the obviously wrong papers. But the future looks like a true human AI team, where the researcher and the AI work together, almost like two colleagues hashing things out.
The paper really sums it up perfectly. We are not at the point of full automation. Not yet. The human expert is still absolutely essential. But what we do have is an incredibly promising assistant that can take on the most tedious, boring part of the job. And that frees up researchers to do what they do best: think.
Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating question. For anyone out there who's involved in learning or research, or even just trying to find that signal in all the noise, maybe it's time to start thinking about your work not as a solo act, but as a collaboration. And your next research partner, it might just be an AI.